Hi there and welcome to this week's vlog, and the thoughts I want to share today really are for those of you who belong or part of a local church, community, family, fellowship, however you like to describe it. And I want to ask you about how you support the leader, the pastor, the minister, the vicar, whatever you call that person of your church. How do you support them? Some years ago, I was talking with a colleague who was an Anglican vicar in the village where I was living and serving at that time, and he said, "Do you know, on Monday morning, somebody knocks on my door at the vicarage, and I opened the door, and there was this lady who was a regular attender at my church, and she said, 'Vicar, I've just come to tell you how much I really appreciated your service, your sermon on Sunday morning.'" And my friend said to me, "You could have knocked me over with a feather," because it's so rare that anybody says thank you, says how much they appreciate services or my ministry. Almost always when people give me feedback, it's negative. People complaining, people saying I don't like this and I don't like that. And I found that really very, very sad, isn't it? Because in my experience as a Methodist minister in full-time ministry, those knockbacks, those criticisms, those complaints really do affect a person, affect you. They make you really struggle sometimes. And let's face it, ministry, a church leader, it can be a really very lonely place to be, because there's so much that you are told or experience or go through that you can't even share because of confidentiality with those who are closest to you. I know that my wife Sue has been an amazing support for me over the years, but there are lots of things that I couldn't share even with her. And so when you're kind of faced with constant criticism or people complaining or people, you introduce something slightly new, like once when I encourage people to say the more contemporary version of the Lord's Prayer for the benefit of the children who might not understand some of the words of the old prayer. Somebody came to ask me afterwards, after the service, and started moaning and complaining about it. So often there's an inward looking, what do I like, when actually it's about how do we as a church. So that's really what I'm asking you to think about. How do you care for, support, love your church leader? I've heard from other church leaders who have been brought to tears through the harsh criticism and backbiting that they face. I know that at times in my active ministry, when I saw or heard about what's going on in the church, how people were fighting with each other, not physically, thank goodness, but behaving in a way that is totally unchristian, it's hard to take. So I want to just set that challenge before you. How do you encourage your pastor, your church leader, your vicar, even if sometimes you don't agree with them, the way they do things? Let me just share 3 verses from the scriptures with you. First of all, from 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 11, Paul writes, "Encourage one another and build each other up." Now that's a general thing. In fact, I once took a service where I gave people a bit of paper and I said, just think of somebody who you really appreciate, write their name down and write on there why it is that you appreciate them. What do you appreciate about them? Maybe a family member, a friend, somebody in the church, your church leader. And then sometime after service, go and give that to them and say, thank you for that. Thank you. I appreciate this that you do for me, or do the way you do that. Because so often we don't take time to thank people. Another of Paul's letters to the Galatians, chapter 6, verse 2, bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. Is there some way that we can help our leaders when they're going through a tough time? Certainly we ought to be praying regularly for them. Get to know them. as a, church leaders, just because they might put on a dog collar or whatever, doesn't mean they're different sort of people. That they are ordinary people just like you and me. Extend them grace. They are human beings. They get things wrong. Don't jump on them as soon as they make a mistake. Extend them grace. Support them in whatever way you can. And then the final verse, Hebrews 10:24. Let us consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good deeds. How can we encourage? Let's be an encourager. That's the overall big challenge. Be an encourager. Be alongside. Show people how much you appreciate them. That's a general invitation, but particularly I want to ask you to encourage the leader in your church, because it's not an easy role, that. But if you speak to them words of encouragement, that will truly bless them. So there's my thought for the day. God bless you. Thank you so much for listening today.